Welcome to Engage,
where we are inspired by Jesus impacting our city and the world.
Living this way is an art form that is best when practiced together. We do this together by resisting apathy,
Welcoming everyone and making sure no one is left out.
participating in remedying the concerns of those around us and around the world.
Telling our stories, and just by actually being, eating, and doing life together.
We believe that every day is another chance to live by faith
Labor in love.
and endure with hope. Join us, create with us,
as we follow the brushstrokes of the Creator. Welcome to Engage.
I've read the stories of heartache and of glory. I've prayed every prayer for you, and I've tasted glory because you say we're worthy. I've sung every song for you. But I have a wandering heart and a fickle faith. Can you find me here? Can I see your face? Help me return to you. There's nothing I'd rather do than return to you. There's nothing I'd rather do. The storm may rise, the trumpet sound, the curtain tear, and even now return to you. There's nothing I'd rather do than return to you. I'll leave the boat, but when the storm comes, I'll let go, and I'll sink faster than the stone. And I've called your name when the world is full of pain, but
preach, I talk a lot about my journey with mental health. Like, I think every time. Maybe too much, but I do that for two reasons. One, I think that it's important to do my little part in clearing out the stigma when it comes to the topic. And two, I think this is probably the reason for the frequency, is that so many of my experiences are informed by mental health. It's hard for me to look back and not see that mental health thread kind of going through all of my experiences in life. Like when I was a teenager, not condoning this behavior in any way, shape, or form, but I experimented a lot with drugs. And I think that young people do this for all sorts of reasons. But I actually do believe that in most cases, maybe all cases, there is a mental health component there. And that was a big part of it for me. And because that was such a big part of it, it made the trying of these things very personal, very intimate. And I felt very vulnerable when I was doing so. Now, I couldn't have named that when I was a teenager, but I can now looking back. So one particular time, I was with three of my friends and we were trying something new. I remember sitting in the back seat of the car with one of my buddies, and two were in the front seat, obviously. And we were pulling into the driveway behind that was behind my friend's house. And me and my friend in the back were just laughing, carrying on, joking around. And we all got out of the car together. And as we did so, I just happened to overhear the two friends that were in the front saying kind of a quiet comment to each other about how annoying we were being. Now, not a big deal, right? You know, like who cares? But it hurt me because, like I said, I was in this vulnerable space where I needed to at least feel like I was safe and could be myself. And in one moment, I was sideswiped by this realization that maybe I'm not safe here. Maybe I can't be myself. And I felt like I was being judged. Now, I never brought that up to those two friends. And here I am at 41 years old, and I still remember this seemingly unimportant moment. And not only that, but there are other moments years later that even started to resemble that one. And I had a very strong reaction in those moments. So I can clearly see the harm that can come from not having a confrontation that maybe needed to happen, probably needed to happen. So in Matthew 18, Jesus teaches about just that, confrontation. It's a practical teaching on how a person should deal with someone they feel has done wrong or done them wrong. And there are three clear steps to Jesus' plan, each dependent upon how the previous one has gone. 1, confront the person face to face, one-on-one. 2, they won't listen, then bring 1 or 2 others to confront them. 3, if they still won't listen, then involve your community or the church and the church. So if steps 1, 2, and 3 are faithfully carried out, and the person still won't listen, then Jesus says they are to essentially be removed from the community. Now, I actually didn't realize how practical this teaching from Jesus was until I had to do my own harassment confrontation training at my job. We're all remote, so it was just a video, that you interact with. And once I got done with the hour-long video, the program showed me that I still had one more task to complete. And it started to play the same exact video again. Now, in the moment, I was like, I do not want to be the guy that decided that I didn't need to complete all the tasks for this harassment confrontation training. So I just kept watching it, thinking maybe, there must be some minute difference in the second time around that I was supposed to catch. And about 45 minutes into the same exact video, I actually did message our operations officer, and she first over messages kind of chuckled at me and it said, you can stop, like you've done what you need to do. And we both kind of talked back and forth through messages about like how long I would have kept doing the same video over and over again if it never would have stopped me. But during that time, I realized how close this training that I was receiving on workplace confrontation was to Jesus's teaching in Matthew 18. It's almost identical. Go to the person. If that doesn't resolve it, take someone with you. If that doesn't resolve it, then it's time to address this with a supervisor. I think I've always viewed this teaching from Jesus in kind of a negative way because it's titled by someone other than Jesus as how to deal with sin. By the way, the Hebrew word there could also be translated as an offense or something that offends you. I think Jesus' motivation in this teaching is actually more focused on healthy people, healthy relationships, and healthy communities. And Jesus speaks directly to those motivations with some of the clear highlights from this scripture. First, talk to the person. Talk about it. Don't let it fester. Don't let it sit. Don't formulate a post on social media. Go to the person and talk about it. Jesus says in Matthew 18:15, go and point out their fault just between the two of you. I think about the story that I shared with my friends who offended me, honestly, and what might have been different if I had done this, spoke to them. And knowing my friends, I bet they would have made amends, said they were sorry. And how would that have affected me, not only in that moment, but the years to come? So my question is, what about you? Are there things that are festering, sitting, as social media, like it has for so many, become this outlet for the things that we aren't willing to say face to face? And how countercultural, maybe even culture shifting, culture leading would it be if the church was to become a place where we follow Jesus' teaching on this by first talking directly to the person before anything else at all happens? Second highlight I see here is listening. Jesus says listen 3 times at every step of the confrontation process that he's laying out. So the goal is not, according to Jesus, necessarily to have the person agree with you. It's to have them listen, that they would listen. Now, Jesus, as God's son, obviously stands outside of time and space, but he did live and operate inside of a time and a space. And he lived long before the disjointed world we see today, in his own disjointed world. But even then, Jesus is championing listening as kind of this ultimate antidote to any and every problem between people. It's not problem solving. It's not clever words or rhetorical technique. No, it's not power. It's not strength. Listening is the key. And I know that's saying a lot, but it's true. At every step, Jesus says, we are to listen, really listen to each other. And third, and I think this one might be probably the most poignant for us, Jesus never once, as he's laying out the proper way of doing confrontation, he never once says that the person who feels offended needs to think about what they might have done to cause this situation. There is an unspoken, unwritten, inherent understanding in Jesus' teaching that the offended person has validity and deserves our respect. Now, Jesus did live in a culture that was unfortunately similar to ours in this respect, the seeming infatuation with picking apart an argument just for the sake of picking it apart, the infatuation with character crushing, especially of those who are brave enough to come forward to stand up for themselves. And Jesus could have, and I believe he would have, put into this practical confrontation teaching to look into the person who's offended. If that had been a place, if there had been a place for that in this process, for Jesus, there wasn't a place for that. And so for us, it shouldn't have a place either. The offended person's experience and feelings have validity because, as Jesus points out in the very first verse of this teaching, they are a brother or sister. And that's all. I think we can all agree that piecing apart a person's life in a confrontation situation based upon past words or actions is not humanity at its best. While on the flip side of that, going to a person directly, truly listening to them and have them listen to you, and offering a person inherent respect as a brother or sister, well, that might just be humanity at its best. Jesus' teaching ends with a couple lines of scripture that they usually get wrapped up into the next story, the parable of the unmerciful servant. But I believe these two lines also, they perfectly cap Jesus' thoughts on confrontation. Matthew 18:21 and 22 says this: Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times? And Jesus answers by saying, I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times. Now, what that doesn't mean is that we actually count up to 77 or like, okay, that's it. That's all I got for you. What it does mean is unlimited grace. Jesus' teaching here is often overshadowed, as it was for me, by the negativity of the person that's being sent out if they never listen, and this idea of sin. But the person who doesn't listen at every stop of the confrontation process is given every opportunity to listen. The process isn't even cut off from them for trying again, if at a later date they are ready to listen. And then with those last 2 verses, Jesus wraps this whole process in this blanket of unlimited grace. And it strikes me that Jesus is one with authority to do just that. The Easter season is upon us, and it won't be long until we're standing together, the shadow of the cross, imagining the nails traveling through flesh and then wood. And we might ask ourselves, as I do, honestly, every single Good Friday, like, what was this about? What was it for? And as you can imagine, as we know, the answers to that are many. Some we can grasp and others we cannot. And I do wonder also sometimes if it couldn't have just been like dealer's choice, like, Jesus, you went through all that, so just tell us like what we're supposed to do. Like, what is your reward? And Jesus could have said, you will get along with each other. Like, look what I did. You must get along with each other. But instead, Jesus gives us the tools to try that relationship together. The tool of speaking up for ourselves. The tool of truly listening to each other. The tool of offering inherent respect for brothers and sisters. All wrapped up in the unlimited grace that we have because of Jesus. That is a reward that Jesus chose. And that is a God that I can worship. In a world where it is becoming increasingly difficult to be so, this teaching from Jesus is one that makes me proud to be labeled a Christian. Confrontation happens, has happened, will happen. But with the tools and the unlimited grace that Jesus offers, there's always a way for us to move forward together.